Hi Booktube, Zina, beating around the books, and it's been a while since I've made a video because I was on holiday. I wanted to film a video on holiday, but I don't know, it just didn't happen. I had too much fun sitting around in the sun, swimming and whatever. And the main thing was that I didn't really feel comfortable filming in the holiday apartment that we were in because there were other people there, my in-laws, stuff like that. And where it's beautiful around the coast there, I think I wouldn't have been able to film because the sound would have been terrible because of all the waves gushing and whatever. I might insert a little clip to show you how pretty it was there. But otherwise, yeah, just see me back in my home environment. So this is probably gonna be a short catch-up and a holiday reading wrap-up, I guess. So I read a lot fewer books than I normally anticipate to read on holiday. I think partially because of the type of books I chose, which were a lot more difficult than some of my other fare, and also because I have been having trouble with insomnia and couldn't really focus as much as I would like to on reading. Anyway, so let's start with the physical books that I read. It was Mathias Enard's Tell Them of Battles, Kings and Elephants, which is translated by Charlotte Mandell. This was really, really beautiful. This is about Michelangelo, who is invited to Constantinople to design a bridge over the Golden Horn. And it's sort of, well, obviously in a way it's historical fiction. I think Mathias and I used relatively scarce sources of some some letters that were found by Michelangelo, and also the odd lists that he made, and of course, you know, other things around that then are sort of, you know, just made up from his own imagination. And it's sort of written in this quite, I don't want to say fragmented style, but it's sort of, is it vignettes? I don't know. I mean, it does follow a chronological order. That's not the, but it's you know, super short chapters that are really immersive, which sounds weird, I guess, if they're so short. And then you have sort of interspersed very few where an unnamed voice is speaking to Michelangelo, that are really beautiful. I feel slightly incapable of talking any more about this, apart from saying that I really enjoyed it. It was 5 stars for me. And I definitely want to read more by Mathias Enard, just for the beauty of the prose. So yeah, it's a really nice and quick read as well. It's only 130 something pages. I think I can recommend it. Then the next 2 physical books were buddy reads. This one is Marc Nash's 3 Dreams in the Key of G, which I buddy read with Bob the Bookerer. We originally wanted to have Pei join the buddy read as well, but I don't know, there were a few things that prevented him from taking part, which is a shame, because I think we could have definitely benefited from his perspective too, because this is an incredibly densely written book. It took me quite a while. Like, it probably took me, like, I don't know, 4 times as long to read this as it would, you know, another novel of this length. It's 211 or 200 and something pages long. I don't want to go into too much detail because I am about to film a Zoom discussion with Bob, which will happen in, I don't know, like an hour roughly. Suffice it to say, I really enjoyed it, but it's not a book for everyone, and it took me quite a while. And also, I think a lot of it, whilst I think I'm not super dumb or whatever, I do think some of the ideas probably went over my head, I will say. Just quickly, this is a book written in 3 different strands. Well, I mean, it's in the title. We have 2 women. Well, I mean, I guess you could say they're 3 female voices. The mother, the crone, and the creatrix. The mother is a mother who lives in Ulster, who has 2 young children and a useless husband, who is useless not only as a father, but also as a partner. I mean, I guess that, well, that's already inherent in there then if he's not a good father. Well, anyway, so he's terrible. And she writes a diary, but the diary entries are not in chronological order. So that sometimes confuses things. Then we have an older woman who is British but lives in the US, and she runs a what's it called, like a shelter for women who come from abusive relationships, but she slowly reveals sort of you know, I guess another motive that they have, or she has, with this organization, which has to do with altering the gene pool so as to get rid of the violent male tendencies. I'll just try and stay vague. And then the other voice is the creatrix, which is the voice of the genome. It's the 4 bases that make up DNA. So we have G, C, A, and T. And they sometimes almost have this sort of choral voice. And the human genome, well, the genome itself is angry, to say the least, and feels violated by scientists who are trying to study it and map the genome. So this is, basically talking back during the Human Genome Project at sort of, talking back to the scientists about their sort of, how do you say this? I can't think of the word. Oh, their hubris, is that how you say it? Hubris, about, trying to basically, well, to uncover the mystery of life and, trying to get behind, how certain illnesses work, etc. And the genome is basically mocking humanity for, thinking that it can do this. It's an incredibly irreverent voice, but also rather difficult to understand sometimes. But it's also very, very funny, the tone. Now I've gone on. I should stop because I'm going to do a discussion on this and it's going to be longer. So if you're interested in that, once we've finished it and edited it and uploaded it, I will link to that down below. But it might happen after this video goes up. I'm not sure. And I also don't know if it's going to be on my channel. It's probably going to be on Bob's. Or maybe on both. I don't know. We have to sort that out. So yeah. More on that later. And the other one that I read was also a buddy read, which was Borges' The Aleph and Other Stories. Read this with Roz of Scarlet Handling about the books, which was a sort of nice surprise. This was in my bucket list book tag, and I think, well, the bucket list thing was about how, you know, books that you want to read at some point, but not necessarily in the immediate future. And then I saw that she was about to read this, like maybe a week or so after I put this on that list. And then I just jumped straight in because, you know, I already had it and I thought this would be a nice book to have a buddy read on. So Borges has a lot of fantastic ideas and musings about, oh God, about what? About labyrinths, about life and death, about immortality and what immortality could mean for humans. And this is a very mixed bag for me. Both, I mean, I guess, you know, it's a short story collection, what do you expect? But this is not only the Aleph, there's also prose pieces from the Maker in this, I think. Yeah, so the Maker is another mixed collection that also features poems and stuff, but this only has the prose. And yeah, I was not as enamored with the ones from the Maker as I was with the ones from the Aleph, but also that one was incredibly mixed. And some of these I would not have understood anything without the notes, although the notes seemed rather intrusive sometimes. Others were absolute gems. I think my unbeaten favorite is The House of Asterion, which I already knew because I've also written about it a little bit in a paper. But there were a few other gems in here. One actually from the Maker, which was Borges and I, which was incredibly, I don't even know if it's meta or if you can call it meta, but yeah. This is pretty fantastic. My only gripe, so like I said, mixed bag. I'm not saying that I loved every single short story, but the ones I loved were absolutely worth reading this collection for. But my only gripe is that Borges cannot, for the life of him, write women. Or, well, not saying cannot, refuses to. So first of all, there's barely any women in here. The first woman you see in one of these stories, I think may even be no, not the first one. One of the first stories anyway. The woman doesn't even get a name. She, as opposed to, you know, all the protagonists, and she is literally just objectified and therefore, well, sexual pleasure and also for, I guess, sort of as a symbol of status and possession of a person, which symbolizes power within a hierarchical structure. That is all. She has no agency of her own whatsoever. So that was already annoying. I know this is, you know, this was written at a different time, but even then I'm sure, you know, there were other writers who could write women in a different way and didn't just use them for this sort of thing. Otherwise, there's barely any women making any appearance. And then there's one where we actually have a female protagonist. And I got excited. Now, it's sort of a revenge story. And whilst that is in a way quite satisfying, the trope he uses and the way the revenge is carried out and justice is served, I think is quite a damaging narrative to women and to survivors of sexual violence. And it was therefore, it left me with very uneasy feelings. And otherwise, again, barely any women. Then there's another one where it's just, she's just used as this trope of a mad woman. So that aside, I don't hate you, Borges. I will still read more of him because he's a fantastic writer, but just be aware, women do not receive good treatment at his hands. So yeah, that's everything I finished. I was on holiday for 12 days and that's all I finished. I did listen to 2 audiobooks. One was How to Kill Your Family by Mackie, which was quite funny and entertaining, but fell flat towards the end, very much so actually. But what is it about? So we I have no clue about protagonists' names. I think we've established that. It's about, so the protagonist is a young woman who is currently serving a sentence for a murder she hasn't committed. And she is writing a diary, she's writing about, her frustration of being in jail, or in prison. But the reason why she's so frustrated is that she's actually committed a larger number of murders. And, she ingeniously managed not to get caught for those, and she's incredibly frustrated that she got sentenced for a crime that she did not commit. So she feels the need to write down her other genius deeds of, like I said, murder. And that is quite fun and entertaining and exciting in a way. Although it's quite dark, of course, as well. But it's written in a rather light-hearted tone. But yeah, it's not something that, it's not a must-read or anything. It was just kind of entertaining. But like I said, fell flat at the end. Was not a fan of the sort of twist. I don't know, because obviously I don't want to spoil it. I'm not going to go into detail. But it is on audio. It's available on audio and script. So if if you have a membership and you're looking for some entertainment in that sort of department, you may as well check it out. I would be a bit annoyed if I'd spent actual money on it, to be honest. And then the other one that I finished was a memoir. It was Crying in H Mart by Zauner, which was all over Bookstagram, and I'm assuming also Booktube, I'm sure. It's a memoir of Zauner about her, about, to an extent, growing up as a Korean American who is mixed race, so her father is white and her mother is Korean, about these sort of questions of belonging and identity that are difficult for her to navigate, which resonated quite a lot with me. Then a large part, what sort of goes through the whole narrative is mouth-watering descriptions of delicious Asian food, mainly Korean, which is very, you just don't listen to it when you're hungry. But the main thing that is sort of, the most important part is about her relationship with her mother, which is quite difficult. It's very close from the beginning in her childhood, but then gets very fraught over time, which is also, I guess, in a way not surprising, her mother being from a different culture than the one that she grows up in. Another thing I can empathize with, but the really big hitter here is that her mother then gets diagnosed with cancer. I can't remember which one, at a relatively young age. And we hear Zauner talk about how she moves back home to care for her mother during chemotherapy, and about how she tries to, all of a sudden she tries to be the perfect daughter for her, to prove how much she loves her and how, what a good daughter she is. And she wants to basically make up for any of the times that she was difficult as a teenager, and wants to do everything her mother wants her to do in order to prove herself, because she's so afraid of losing her. And a lot of that is also about food. So she imagines that she's going to learn to cook all of these foods for her because she needs her to keep her strength up, and about her frustration because her mother during chemo has barely any appetite, and sort of, rejects a lot of, or refuses a lot of the things that she makes. And then, sadly, it is about how her mother dies of this cancer because she refuses to have any more chemo after the second round, and about caring for a dying relative at home. And there's an incredible amount of detail in terms of, her medical trauma, like the treatment and the symptoms the chemotherapy caused, but then also, the slowly dying from it, and the indignities that are suffered by cancer patients or dying patients, with regards to, I guess, their bodily autonomy that is slowly, taken away from them. And I know that in most of the reviews I've seen, this is mentioned, but I think it's mostly glossed over, in favor of the food descriptions. And to me, this took up way more space than I would have expected from those reviews. Luckily, I'd seen Hannah, formerly from Let's Talk About Books Baby, now called Hannah May, mention this and sort of give a warning about it, because, it's incredibly harrowing. So if you go into it thinking, oh, okay, so she's lost her mother and she tries to reclaim her culture through food, and this is what it's going to be about, food mainly, and a bit of grief. Sorry, that sounds really flippant. Then that's not what you're getting, okay? It's really harrowing. So just be aware. The grief just sort of resonates throughout the book. And I thought this was really good. I really enjoyed it. Enjoyed sounds like the wrong thing to say about that. But it was definitely not an easy one. And don't just read it for the food writing, because you will not get that, only that. It's much harder hitting than that. So that would be my little word of warning, I guess. But it was fantastic. I gave it 5 stars. I might want to purchase it. I don't know. Again, that's also on script, on audio. I might want to purchase it. I'm not sure yet. So that's all I finished during my holiday. I also picked up this one, Mac and His Problem by Enrique Vila-Matas. I don't know, is that how you pronounce his name? A Spanish writer. Who was this translated by? By Margaret, Jull, Costa and Sophie Hughes. I've had this on my shelves for a while. I saw it on past story time, but at some point held this up. But I think it's over a year ago, and it sounded really interesting, with sort of postmodern tendencies. but I'll just get into it when I've read it, I guess. So far, I think I'm like 40% in or so. 86 pages of something over 200, yeah, something like that. It's enjoyable, it's quite fun in this sort of postmodern way of fun. And yeah, I noticed during my holiday that all the physical books I picked up were by men, which is weird and not really my usual. So then when I got home, I decided to immediately read another woman, and I haven't got it with me. Well, this is not a holiday read anymore, so who cares? But yeah, I read it for also Bird's Shorty September, which is almost over. But since it's about shorties, maybe you can squeeze one in between. It's always nice and sort of feels like a little bit of an easy achievement to finish off a book that's short and really quick. And that was Unica Zürn's Dark Spring, Dunkler Frühling. Anyway, I'm rambling on about books that I did not read on holiday, so I should probably stop now. But yeah, check out Shorty September if you haven't already, and maybe squeeze in a short book. Yeah. What else did I want to ask? Oh yeah, so a little catch up apart from having been on holiday and not been sleeping and stuff. I clearly have a problem making regular content. So I'm wondering how other people do this, right? Clearly they must make some sort of time, a specific time, a weekday or a specific time of the day to film a video. I don't know if I can actually commit to that. So that's why I'm not sure if I can like try and move towards Friday reads, because that seems like too much of a commitment. But these wrap-ups are getting increasingly more difficult because my memory is bad. And I feel like at the end of a month, or especially if I'm late, then it's like 5-6 weeks since I've read the first few books. I can barely make any coherent statements about these books. So I'm wondering what I should do instead. Try and do more single reviews, but that sounds like a lot of work, especially if it's a book that I don't particularly feel like reviewing. Or maybe do bi-weekly wrap-ups. I don't know. Maybe you guys can help me and give me a tip. Yeah, that's one thing that I'm contemplating right now. Yeah, so this time I guess we had holiday wrap-up, and then at some point there will be a September wrap-up, hopefully soon. Although that's not going to be any easier because, again, like there's still books from the first 2 weeks of September that I can't even recall half the books that I've read. I always need to go into Goodreads and go, yeah, that's what you read in September, so who knows. Yeah, anyway, that's about it. Oh, and then the last thing, going back to the bucket list thing, I've looked at the comments, and well, I've now already read one, which I don't think anybody voted for. I think maybe one person. So with an absolutely huge majority, Beloved is the number one book that loads of people said, you have to read it. And there were so many people that wanted to read it as well that I was thinking maybe we can do a buddy read, like a group read together. I've still got to get in touch with those people on Voxer preferably. But yeah, so I thought I would just make this sort of weird non-committal announcement that next year at some point we want to read that. I'm gonna come up with a better idea of exactly when. I think sometime in spring. And throw it open to anyone else who's interested in buddy reading, group reading, Beloved by Toni Morrison. So yeah, let me know if that's interesting to you, and we can get in touch, and then we can have a little group and chat about it next year. That would be lovely. I want to do some more buddy reads that are sort of, I guess, announced on here, maybe for the next, not maybe, for the next year, because I read, I don't know, a few weeks ago, I read a comment, I can't remember where, sorry, but I read a comment under another Booktubers channel that said that Booktube seems to have gotten more cliquey and more exclusive with these buddy reads and blah 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 and tags where, you know, it's not really taking into account commenters. And I thought, well, my experience was a bit different. I mean, I get it from the buddy reads, especially if they're not announced, and then people just go, oh yeah, buddy read this again with so and so person, and I'm not I'm not innocent of that either. But as a commenter, my first maybe 2 buddy reads, or possibly 3, were all as a commenter. I didn't have a channel, and I just, you know, I just commented underneath somebody's video and said, hey, cool, would it be possible to join? And then you get a yes or a no, and mostly it was a yes, and people were very welcoming. So I'm not sure if that's always mentioned. So I think that would be a good idea to mention it again, and to then also specifically ask for people to buddy read with me, whatever, in the next year. Yeah, who may or may not have a channel. Oh God, why can I speak? I cannot speak. Yeah, so to open it up to people. I mean, it is, I guess, in a way already open, but I think maybe it makes sense to just sort of extend a hand and make it more obvious that, of course, people without channels are also more than welcome to join in on these things. You just need to connect at some point, and then people, there's loads of people who read books together with commenters. It's not just people with channels. So that is a project for next year. I'm gonna have to pick out a few books that I desperately want to read and that I feel like are good for a buddy read, and yeah, then I'll do that. Sorry, this got on longer than I wanted. This is going to be fun to edit. Anyway, I need to stop now because I think I have to do this Zoom chat with Bob. Looking forward to that.